Welcome, welcome. This endeavor or journey of self-realization, self-discovery, or God realization, or total understanding, freedom, peace, unconditional love, end of suffering, end of separation, end of seeking, whatever label we want to give this endeavor. It is not so much about learning or even understanding when we read or listen to talks or contemplate, meditate, take on purification practices. So this process is not so much about understanding or learning something that we don't already have learned or understood. It's more about emptying our system that is already full of concepts and beliefs and hurt and self-obsessiveness that is so full of fear or attachment to outcome of gaining something, of fear of losing something. So we're so full of strife in a way that what we seemingly are looking for goes unnoticed. And the pointing and the wisdom teachings are not here to tell us something that we don't already know. On the contrary, they're pointing to what is already here, if only our systems were empty enough, light enough, available enough for there to be openness, to not see it, but just to be still enough, to be silent enough that what is already here could shine through. There's no looking required even. No inquiry required. No contemplation required. All of those are tools for the system to quieten enough, to calm down enough, that what is already here can be conscious now, in experience, can be experienced as what it is labeled or pointed as already here. And this pointer just doesn't make sense when I am full of hatred or shame or judgment of myself or of my process or of someone else. When I'm full of preconceived notions of even spiritual concepts. If I've read too many books, I've met too many spiritual guides, and they seem to contradict one another, and rightly so. Sometimes they do, based on what the framework is and what the point or the intention of that framework is to provide in the process. And sometimes I'm too attached to getting there or getting enlightened or experiencing freedom or unconditional love based on my own idea of what it is supposed to be like, that the system is just not available enough to see already what is here. So in a way, the only practice is to just empty ourselves. If that feels appealing and if that seems available, right here, right now, not as a plan of, oh, I'll sit 30 minutes every day to empty myself. It may work and it might be very useful also. And yet, it's always here in this moment. Is it possible to just drop everything? And dropping doesn't necessarily mean that thoughts shouldn't arise or emotions shouldn't arise or some situations that I may be thinking about or the thoughts may be going on about. That situation must be different or shouldn't be here. Dropping just means in this moment, everything is allowed. Everything is allowed in a way that there is no need to interfere. The energy from the system that is interfering with how this should be or shouldn't be. Even that is allowed. And something can just be silent, be quiet enough to just curiously be present to whatever is arising. And that already might be the beginning to the emptiness within which all of that which is arising already can now be perceived as what it is and arising, and not an absolute reality that it may feel like or may be experienced as, until there is a possibility to just sit back and let it play. whatever may be arising, whether it feels positive, whether it feels neutral, whether it feels negative, it can just be allowed as it is, as an arising. A clarity within the arising by being present while the pattern is showing up and unfolding. There may be more clarity in understanding the patterns of our system, what triggers, what wounds, what trauma our system functions from. There may also be a possibility of being aware that there is a presence which is not of the arising, which is not made of the story, of the pattern, of the reaction or trigger, or even the person, the separate personal self that seems to be the subject of this life. It may become perceivable that this presence is fundamental to this separate personal self and to its story. This presence is what me, Gurleen, the separate self, the personal storyline is made of. My existence as Gurleen is this presence within which, out of which, of which me, Gurleen, is made of. This presence is always present. Whether me, Gurleen, is aware of it or not. Is it possible to empty ourselves of the interest, of the passion, of the attachment to figuring this out, whatever this may be that we're trying to figure out? Is it possible to just stop this figuring out? There's nothing to figure out. It's only out of habit and out of this need to control or know what this is, that this incessant drive to understand or to know or to figure out stems from, which comes from this deep-rooted belief that if only I would figure whatever I'm figure out, is where the fruit of what I'm looking for lies. And that's the oxymoron. It's not at the end of that endeavor that it lies. It's in the very endeavor falling away, that what is being sought after already is discovered to be what is, regardless of the endeavor, in spite of the endeavor, and as the very source of the endeavor. If only the attachment to the fulfillment of the endeavor were to let go of, not as a doing. And yet, maybe just listening to this concept right now may lead to a relaxation, a dropping in this moment, and something may open up where it may click. That there's nothing to look for. And what we seemingly are looking for is already here. It is the very basis of the looking. It's a radical shift from being stuck, being limited in the thought realm or in the personal realm. And it's just a radical shift into, oh, this is not as absolute as I believed it to be. The person is not as real, as actual, as solid as it has been believed to be. And how that realization comes about is what the whole realm of spiritual practices is about. These pointings, if resonate with the system, can be called the direct route of the very route falling away. And there are many other valuable ways to reach the recognition of the distancelessness of this that we are looking for. Not as we think it is, not as we believe it is, not as we are told that it is, but ever fresh, nothing that we could have imagined. Not that it's so grandiose that it cannot be imagined, but actually it is so simple and so ordinary in a way that is like, oh, This has always been here. No fireworks needed. And yet, all the fireworks arise within this. May it be bliss or unconditional love or peace, joy, or their opposites. All that needs to happen is for us, our systems, to be empty enough to be available for what is already here. Empty enough from looking outward, looking elsewhere, waiting for it as if it's not here and it'll show up in some distant future. Let's sit in silence, this presence in this moment. And maybe just being here, not without the content, but as the very presence which is present for the content, not as an effort, but just as my basic nature. Softening the internal gaze of trying to understand what is arising or why it's arising, and just being here. Again, not as an effort, but as a result of the effort falling away, or as a result of any effort just being allowed as it is. Eyes open or closed, whatever feels comfortable. Letting go of any notions of how this moment should be. I should be feeling peace, or I shouldn't be feeling negative emotions, or whatever those preconceived ideas might be of what this silent sitting should look like. What if it could look like anyway? Anything could arise, or anything could fall away. That already is more silence than how this should be. Silence is unconditional openness. There is no condition to what can arise and what cannot arise and how much can it arise. None of those conditions apply in this vast, unfathomable openness. If anyone has any questions or would just like to talk, you can raise your electronic hand on Zoom and I will unmute you. All the while staying present if possible and being available to notice, does the presence go anywhere when the talking starts or when the listening starts actively? Or is it because of the presence? Is it because of this impersonal awareness, presence that is here already, within which the very listening and talking goes on, the very resonating, understanding, or questioning to what is being listened to goes on? And we have Ranko.
Hi, Gulin.
Hi, Ranko. How are you?
I'm fine. And you?
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for asking.
Very interesting topic, especially about meditation or silent sitting. So in meditation or in silent sitting, some content will appear, actually. And that content is just the perfect one to be in this moment, as it is. So it's the same with everyday life. In our everyday life, in each moment, just the perfect content is arising in this moment. So basically, for me, meditation is just a reflection of our everyday life. Just to see clearly, like experiment, to really see it clearly what is happening. And that content is just the perfect one at this moment to be. Nothing should be changed. So that is also kind of cause of peace of mind in our everyday life. So if we can see our meditation practice or our sittings in silence practice as a clear understanding, clear recognition, that is maybe a better word, of our everyday life. So that is, in a way, our practice, how to see it practically. And that is more important than just in meditation. Meditation just, that is a purpose of meditation, I can say maybe, to recognize that our content, what is happening in this moment, is just what is perfect, what is supposed to happen in this moment. Just a sharing.
Yes, and it's bingo, right, right on. So the purpose of being available for whatever is arising as the very presence within which it all arises is in a way cultivating a muscle to be that availability, that presence in each moment, every day, in every movement that happens, really. And that is what it can be said that when they say that meditation, life itself becomes meditation. And that is really when we are able to not only just live the content as the person, but also be aware of that within which the person and the content are playing. And it's not even an effort on my part to make that happen or to be aware. Although in the beginning, when there is still a grounding going on within the very presence that one may get access to, maybe let's say in a silent sitting or on the cushion when their eyes are closed. And initially it may feel like a practice where I am maybe, let's say, having an argument, and then I have to stop for a bit and kind of find that place again. However, gradually and inevitably, what may happen is that the meditativeness, the openness, the very availability of being here for whatever is, positive or negative, again, and it may morph into one another, but it is allowed to play in everyday life. And peace of mind is really that very background, that very base, which is now available and to relate to the content from, and not being stuck in the realm of the content itself.
Yeah, there is certain element also like trust in life. If we really trust in life, then that is our opportunity to actually to be detached from the content. Because okay, life will take care of itself. And then I can detach myself, like in meditation. Okay, this content is arising, there is a certain reason for it to arise. I don't know what is that reason. I don't have to know. I don't care. And then I can be detached. So in everyday life also, that is basis of peace of mind.
Yes.
So for me, in practical terms, I also consider myself when I get up early in the morning. Okay, this is the day, and in this day I will have enough time, enough money, enough resources to do whatever I need to do. Life will provide me with that. And that's a huge, huge, basic, huge place to stand for a peace of mind, I think.
Yes, yes. Practically speaking, me as Gurleen being able to surrender to the flow of life. Well, no, in a way, the very concept of that life is an impersonal unfolding as per God's will or as per destined, as per my destiny, is exactly tailored to facilitate that trusting in the process where I'm not the doer, nobody else is the doer. It is unfolding exactly as it is, which is one way that it is destined to unfold. And yes, being able to ground in that recognition in daily life just takes off that load of, that I have to make it happen, or what if, and all the worry for the future, regret for the past, and all the complaining in the present that it shouldn't be this way or it should be that way. So all of that load is just off. And when that load can be off, that's meditation. That's really meditation. Or that is really the purpose of a meditation practice, to be able to find or to recognize the quietness which is free from this time-bound regret, worry, and complaining in the seeming past, future, and present. And that is the timelessness of the here-ness, the now-ness, within which the content of this moment can be experienced fully, exactly as it is designed to be, pleasure or pain.
Yeah, the same like in meditation, it's a process. So you start with different content, which could be usually at the beginning very unpleasant. And then certain other things will start to come up. And at one point, you will just lose everything, even a sense of body. And so practically it's the same. So in your daily life also, when you start to like really notice what is happening and really understand all the unpleasant things that you want to push away a little bit, they come after right out in front of you, and you have to see it really. And that's important that you see it. That's a dark night of the soul and so on. But at the end, so even that drops away, and finally, peace of mind.
Woohoo.
So that's but it's a process. I'm also in the process, so I'm not saying
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think it's very important to recognize it's a process. It can be very long, it can be very exhausting, it can be in kind.
Exactly. And that is why being empty of preconceived notions that it should be one way or the other way becomes so useful and important to entertain, because it is not all bliss. And yet, it is within that very bliss that even the exhausting process is going on. And it can be evident if there is that grounding in the trust of knowing that it is, the process is taking care of itself. the uncovering, the peeling of the onion is going on, and I don't need a knife to do it. It's already automatically going on. If anything, it is going on for me, and how fortunate of me, even though it feels so, yeah, uncomfortable at times, when some deep-rooted patterns are being processed or some emotions are coming up, which have been so unconscious that they feel uncomfortable when they come to the surface. And it may even feel like that, oh, I think I was better off before the seeking started, and now it's even worse than when I thought I was suffering and I started seeking in a way. And yet there can be this grounding in the knowing, that surrender to God or to the very process, to life, that it is it's taken care of, and whatever is going on, these feelings that are coming up or these patterns that are just taking over the system is not going to kill me. It's an arising, a very intense one, and yet it's an arising. And that's why it becomes so important to be able to experience the silence that is always here. And in the time, those turbulent times when something so unfathomable, well, it actually is not unfathomable. It may feel like it's unfathomable. When it comes up, the refuge in that silence is available, and this painful or uncomfortable arising pattern, trigger, emotion can move through and not be suppressed or not be resisted or not be rejected. And that can only happen if there is this grounding in the very silence or the trust that we call, in the knowing that it is an arising, a big one, but still an arising.
Yeah, thank you, just sharing.
Thank you, Renko. Talking with you always expands on what we talk about in a satsang. So thank you so much. So in daily living for Gurleen, the capacity to just surrender, as Ranko mentioned, just trusting life, that life takes care of itself. Things arise, motivation to stick to an interest arise, effort comes, I feel like doing it, or I force myself to do it, or I discipline myself to do it. All of that arises in the moment as it needs to be. And then the outcome appears, whether it's a positive outcome or a negative outcome, which is also not in my control. And life goes on. So in daily living, what silence shows up as is falling away or weakening of that attachment to outcome in life, where pleasure means I am okay and pain means I'm not okay. The weakening of this deep-rooted belief is a byproduct, is a consequence, is a way to maybe know that the meditation is working or the process is progressing, whatever that may mean. In other words, in this moment, attachment to outcome is weaker, as destined. Not really worrying about the next moment in which attachment of outcome may be there. And then that is not an attack on me. That is not like, oh, it shouldn't have happened. I shouldn't be attached. But it presents itself as an opportunity to be open again. It's like, oh, look at that. Attachment is still here in that area of life. And that is dynamic meditation, the daily living spiritual practice. You don't me to sit silently in each arising, every conversation, that the maturity, the opportunity for clarity just presents itself, tailor-made for my system. How wonderful could it be? It is as unique as we all are, and it is as the same as we all are. Until next time, which is next Sunday. Thank you for joining today. I love you all.